Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mind Muscle Connection. I'm Joe Klimczewski with Tyler Weeb. Today we're going to talk about a topic: balance versus passion, or balance versus even obsession. And this is going to be a tough one, Tyler, because neither one of us is going to walk away feeling great about this, because I think we both feel pretty obsessed about certain things, especially our career, fitness, health, nutrition. And yet, to survive that, we've both had to at least check some boxes in making sure there's some balance. So there's so much to talk about. It's going to be tough to do this in 20 minutes. But what I'm going to frame this as, and then bring you in for your initial thoughts, is if you even just ask the question, is this pursuit I have, whatever it is it a healthy pursuit? Because that's good. Goal acquisition, passion, drive, determination, grit, resilience. We all want that. We buy those self-development books. But when is it potentially a problem? And I think the best place to go for the initial answer would be an addiction specialist. And so as I have talked to different mental health therapists, even just being in the arena with some of that information, I know that the most frequent answer I hear, and it makes a lot of sense, is that if something is harming you, is harming your occupation, harming your mental health, harming your health, or those of people around you, then there's probably a problem. And I'll give you a couple examples away from the health and fitness realm that we're going to talk about, because I think it gives a little bit better context. So let's say you have a shopping problem, quote unquote, or you love to shop, but when is shopping an addiction or a problem? Well, it's a problem if you're racking up credit card debt, if it's all you think about. If, as one of my friends, he was dating a woman who had an entire basement that looked like a warehouse. Like anything you could possibly own, she had 50 of them and didn't even know she owned them. Every time there was a sale or something, she would just, well, I better get this, just in case. And so that's when something goes from being an okay hobby, even, you could be quite passionate about something, to being painful or an addiction or an obsession. So when we pull this into our realm, I know you and I both have a million clients we could talk about who have really struggled with this. What do you think crosses the line? Where's a client where you can say, okay, wait a second, I love what you're doing. I love that you're goal driven, but you need to pump the brakes. Something's going to go off the rails here. What kind of a client is that like?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, like, what I'm looking for is a lot of that feedback from the client. How are they recovering? How are they feeling? Where's their biofeedback at? Are they wanting to do more and more and more, despite them maybe already doing quite a bit? I can also maybe see it in ways where they are reporting back to me at their check-ins. If we're constantly talking about that scale weight, and I'm sure we could dive very deeply into that and how that affects our psyche and how we can become obsessed, with this number on the scale. And I think once you kind of start to see some of those things start to pop up, or they've dieted quite a bit in the past and they're obsessed with, wanting to be at X number. I think that's when we kind of start to have that conversation of, okay, where is this coming from? Why are we so obsessed with wanting to get this number? Because I think once again, I think we talked about that a little bit on the last podcast, is the why. And that drives so much of this conversation around obsession of, okay, why are we getting to this? And I think just looking out for those type of things, and I'm sure I missed a couple, maybe another one would be, can they even take a break from tracking their food intake for a few weeks? How scary is that to them? And so I think it's really recognizing some of those things where it can maybe be easy to get obsessive within the fitness industry without maybe even realizing, or noticing that you are, in that obsessive. And so it's just about communicating with the client, making sure that you are getting that personal feedback from them and having that very open, trustworthy relationship with them.
And by the time we get to the end of this conversation, I'm going to expand that a little bit and ask the person, our audience, to maybe even have that conversation with their loved ones. How do you perceive my relationship with this? Because I'll give you a couple examples. The client who can't even go out to eat socially with their friends or family. Okay, it's so-and-so's birthday. Our whole family is going to go out. but I'm just going to slam a protein shake in the car and then just sit at the table and not eat. Like, really? I mean, that you may be bordering on an obsession if you can't even function in that normal context. Something like going on a family vacation, for example, and your kids are ready to go to Disney World and where's mom or where's dad? Oh, they're in the gym for 2 hours because it's leg day and they can't miss it, even on a vacation. All of a sudden, that question that an addiction specialist might ask, are you harming other people around you? Are they going to start really feeling resentful and despise this thing that you love? Because the people around you, friends and family, you want them to be your allies. You want to be perhaps a positive role model. But all of a sudden, if everybody starts hating what you're doing, it's certainly not going to help your social relationships. And you're going to do no good for them either. So it's really important, I think, to even ask other people and to check some of those behaviors. And in a very tangible way, you think this through and maybe talk to other people. Yes, Joe, I hear you, but Michael Jordan did that. That's how he became the best and so forth. So, how can I have that balance and still really be a super achiever? And I think that's where you have to really figure some things out logistically. And I'll even ask you, because you now have a child and life has changed a lot for you, I know. And your wife has a career, you have a career, and all of a sudden you have a little bit less of that pie that you can call your own. So at the same time, you still have just as much drive and passion for your own personal pursuits as a powerlifter, as a bodybuilder, as a weightlifter. So maybe just kind of personally, how are you trying to recraft that entire perspective?
That's a very good question. I don't even know if I have the full answer to that yet, as I'm still figuring that out.
Progress,
but,
right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's one of the harder things I find that we can try and get people to figure out, especially when we're specifically talking about this fitness pursuit, as well as balancing life and everything that goes along with that. Because you're right. Unless you're, really into it, it's hard for a lot of people to maybe understand what you're trying to accomplish. And there is a lot of insecurities around it. And so, the individual, I find, has to really be able to find that balance for themselves, because it's going to look different for every single person, because every single person's also going to take this, serious in different levels. Right. And so we have to, again, ask ourselves, okay, what is the end goal of this? Is it to lose 20 pounds? Is it to be the next Jay Cutler? You're going to have different levels of the importance of, how this is for people in their lives. And then people's lives are going to be a lot different as well. You may just not be able to devote, 7 days a week, 1 hour to 2 hours, a day to the gym. That just may not be your life. And so I think it's realistically setting your expectations, adjusting your expectations, and really just looking at your life, seeing what is that priority and how are you going to be able to fit it within your life, and what is that balance going to look like for you? Because there is going to be pros and cons to each side of the coin, right? So someone might be perfect 5 days out of the week, but they might take that Friday, Saturday night to be a little less balanced or and have a little bit more fun. And they may be able to still get results on that, but are they going to get their optimal results? Maybe not, but that's a choice that we have to make. And we have to look at our choices and then the potential consequences of those and go, am I willing to make that choice? Am I willing to, quote unquote, suffer the consequences of that choice in pursuit of this goal? Is it worth it? Right. And so I think that is something that I've been really having to ask myself a lot lately as I try and figure this out and try to figure out the balance of now having a kid, because the time that you have is gone as soon as that little one is around, which, don't get me wrong, I am definitely not complaining. It's been one of the best experiences of my life so far, but you definitely have to learn to ebb and flow with life. And I think that's a very important thing as well, because life is going to change and it's going to, be really busy and then not maybe be as busy. And so to be able to identify and develop that skill of, okay, you know what, I've got extra time in my life right now. Let's push the gas pedal a little bit. Oh, life just got busy. Things all of a sudden popped up out of my control sometimes. we can still back off the gas pedal a little bit. We can enter a maintenance phase. You still might be able to make some results on less as well. If you've been doing quite a bit for some time, all of a sudden recovery gets better. So that's something that I've really tried to, not only as a coach, push to clients. Let's stop having this all or nothing mentality. Let's ebb and flow with life, because that way we're going to be able to be consistent and continue to make progress. That's what's the most important, because there's never going to be a perfect time in your life to start a diet. Shit's always going to happen. Life's always going to get busy. And so it's about, how do we manage those times and still work on those small baby steps towards our goal?
Well, one of the key words I want to pick up on, because what you just articulated was perfect, is expectation. And it really does depend on your stage of life. So I had a client one time that I even recruited into town to work for a friend of mine. And I helped this client win a pro world champion. He's one of the best bodybuilders that's ever graced a stage. And he was single. So you walked into his apartment, in his living room, there wasn't a stick of furniture. It was just mirrors and lights. He just turned his entire apartment was a posing studio. And he was okay with pursuing his passion. But yeah, I mean, sure, if he's married now with children, it's going to be different. And I have to say, that's where you have to gauge your expectations. And what you said so perfectly, Tyler, is look at that long arc of your career, of your goal, in the fact that if this is something you're going to do with longevity. I started training when I was 11 years old. And when I say training, I mean, I haven't missed a week intentionally since. I was following splits from, Mr. Olympia Flex magazine when I was 11 years old. So 40 years of training. And yet, even going through a professional bodybuilding career, it has, to use your phrase, ebbed and flowed. And I had a lot of passion, early on for what my competitive career would look like. But eventually that became less important. There was always that next rung to climb. And so when I became a pro and started working up the ladder, started, beating a few people, started placing mid-pack, finally getting into a top 5 at a big show. My kids, I have 4 children. My oldest was 12 at the time. And all of a sudden, my life with them started becoming more important to me. And all of the time I was able to invest in bodybuilding and fitness, it was just getting contracted. And so I had to make a decision. And frankly, it was pretty easy. I mean, that last contest prep I went through, I knew as I was going through it, this was going to be my last time competing, because I was at this critical stage where my kids were becoming teenagers. The most important thing to me was being a father and the life development of my children, not winning a title. And so I enjoyed that last season. I put everything into it, and we enjoyed it as a family. And then I walked away. I still train just as much, just as hard. I still have goals. You and I worked out together just a couple of weeks ago, a couple of times. Like, I still love everything that I started out in this industry loving, but it has evolved in my expectation bank, because I've evolved, because my family's evolved, because life has evolved. And that's okay. That's how you deal with it. And I'm going to pitch this back to you, Tyler, but I'm going to say, I think how we can deal with that with proper expectations and be happy with it is first understanding who we are. So out of all of the personality tests and exams and so forth you can take online, the one that I think gets the most play right now is what's called the Big 5. So conscientiousness, neuroticism, inversion, extroversion, and I think it's like love of learning and curiosity. And so it's very, very hard for somebody who's high in neuroticism to let this go, because when you latch onto something, you sink your teeth in and you don't let go. And so you have to perhaps work on some of these things. But if you know what your personality traits are, you can realize, yeah, this may be harder for me than other people. But if you don't step away and evaluate what's truly good for you, what brings you the most satisfaction and contentment in all of your life, not just this one piece, and how that is going to impact those people around you, you're going to regret it. You're going to do some things that you're going to look back and say, man, I was definitely a little myopic and totally missed the ball on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's said very well. I think it's, maybe just to put some other words to it, we have a hard time seeing that 30,000-foot view of our, of our life and of our trajectory and of where we want to take things. And we so focus on just the immediate part of our lives because that's just right in front of us, and it's totally understandable how we do that. But I think, yeah, just being able to take that step back, look at, how is this going to affect my life? How is this going to affect the ones around me? I mean, I know for my very first prep, you have to be obsessive with that prep. You have to have a certain level of obsession. And we didn't realize how much of a toll it could take, on a relationship, and how much you might alienate, the people around you as you go through something like this. And so, again, just having that experience and then being able to talk with someone, in your life that maybe has a little bit more of an objective viewpoint, because when you're prepping and have that level of obsession, you're in it, right? You got your blinders on, you're just moving forward. You are hoping you can take one step in front of the other at some point. And so, yeah, just to be able to understand that and have those trust points in your life can be absolutely huge to, for someone to go, hey, you know what, this might be getting to be a little bit too much, because, yeah, like I said, it is very hard for us to sometimes to see that whole picture when we're thick into that maybe obsession.
Well, I'm going to pull out the best answer that you've already given, and you may not even know you just nailed it right on the head. But then I'm going to ask everybody a question to kind of reflect on. What you said, Tyler, I started out with speaking kind of addiction therapy and addiction counseling. I want to go to more of a marriage counseling side, because when you talked about being able to throttle back and forth in your intensity based on what life is doing, this is where discussing these things with other people come into play. Because just like in a marriage or relationship, there's a concept called marital individuation. And it's quite profound, because it gets into how you even view this relationship, and the fact that you have two people that are completely autonomous, completely independent people, but then you overlap in this relationship. And so in that autonomous part, what, things you like, things your spouse or your partner likes, and so forth, you have to be able to give each other that space. And so if 24/7, 168 hours a week, it's all about me, and you've got to respect my passions, the things that I'm, thrilled about, then you've already lost the ball game, and you're never going to have great, support around you, because people will always despise you. But if you can say, okay, hey, honey, I just need this. Here are my workout times. Here's my schedule this week. I know I'll watch the baby during these weeks, and I'll let you do your things this week. But here's what's really important to me. So how can we make this work? So we're all happy. And yet I can definitely put the throttle down. I can redline this thing as far as I want. I can be as passionate as I want. But then there are times I have to let other people in my life do the same thing. And I need to be able to respect that and back away. So, again, it does come down to some logistical and time management. But more than anything, it's just the communication, so that you and everybody around you literally have those expectations. Because if it were something else, if you had diabetes or something, and so you had a very strict diet you had to follow, nobody would be angry about that. Nobody would be angry that you can't eat these foods. They would just make that allowance. And so I think it's critical that we just understand each other and move forward like that. So one of the things I want to leave with, Tyler, and I'm going to let you have the last word on this, is just knowing that you can have your cake and eat it too. For example, you can literally, just be as passionate as you want, but within the expectation framework that you share with other people. Let's ask this one big question. Why is this even such a passion for you? Is it something that you feel you have this need? Is it part of an identity that may not even be healthy? I'll give you an example. So I was talking earlier about different personality tests, and Dr. Seligman and Peterson wrote the book on personality psychology and positive psychology. And you have to know your strengths and so forth, and why you act the way you are. But one of the things that Seligman just wrote recently is something called the Hope Circuit. And he really talks about even just goal pursuit and learned optimism. The things that we're doing, are we doing it in the fitness world, in our professional careers, in the health and fitness industry, maybe in a bodybuilding physique sport pursuit? Is it truly for the pure joy of it? You have to really sort that out. Is this something that is just giving you a false hope that you can become something else, or is it really satisfying something you love? And that's where, for me, Tyler, I kind of answered that question in the fact that when I was able to walk away from the sport as a competitor, goals met, went as far as I wanted, it was fun. I'm still just as passionate about other parts, but it's okay to let that part of the identity go away and replace it with something even better.
Yeah, it's a great question, and hopefully I won't go too long on the answer here. I think we all start from a position of insecurity. I think that's almost a 100% guarantee. Now, obviously it's impossible to study and truly know, but I know for myself and most clients, it's I want to lose body fat. I want to look better. I want to be comfortable in my own skin. Hell, that was why I started when I was 15. I was some scrawny little kid, unpopular, and just wanted to be popular, jacked, and all of that. But over the years of doing that, that certainly does wear out. You do kind of, whether it's just consciously, unconsciously, I believe that, at least for myself, that part it's still there. Like that may never go away, as that's part of my insecurities of growing up, but it becomes a very, very small aspect of it. And now, what it has become for me is a dedication to the process of doing something day to day that seems so minute and seems, boring in a sense, that is going to result in results down the road. And it's more so that pursuit of learning how to be dedicated to a goal. And I think that is what can transfer into other people, into other areas of your life as well, because it's, hey, if I can be, dedicated for this, I can eat the same boring food each day. I can go do the same gym routine for, for 2 years, what have you. Man, there's probably a whole lot of other things that you're able to probably apply that dedication to. And that's what I really try and stress to clients is let's enjoy this process. Like that, this is what it's about, right? Again, using that paint drying analogy, this is where the magic happens, and this is where you're going to get that results. And so let's learn that dedication to a goal and start to pursue that goal with that dedication. It's a learning process, and it's a process where you can take those steps to not only just achieving a physique, but I'm a big believer in becoming a better overall person, because it does take a lot of time and patience. It's a very much delayed gratification sport and pursuit, and you have to be willing to put kind of your expectations on a different trajectory than you typically think. When someone's like, oh, 1 year, yeah, you can definitely do something in a year. Like, don't get me wrong, you can not almost recognize yourself after a year, but it's still going to take a lot of time to probably truly get to where you have that little picture in your mind. We all have this ideal picture of what we want to look like in our mind, whether it's realistic or not. And so to be able to learn that delayed gratification, I think, is one of the most important lessons that you can take from this pursuit.
Well, I'm gonna wrap up with a word that you alluded to, which is just evolution. When you said to be able to take those skills and transfer them to other things, as I gave an example of my life of 40 years in the sport, it has evolved. It continues to bring me satisfaction, contentment, pleasure. But as you said, it has evolved into different things and different goals. And yet to be able to still be okay with that and allow your identity to evolve, it takes a lot of even internal communication, just like I talked about communicating with other people around you. And so we'll leave you guys with that. It's just, understand that you're not doing this in a vacuum. You're going to have impact on other people. You're also going to have impact on your future self. And so I think you owe it to your future self to know that you're investing these years and the amount of time and resources into something that you're really going to enjoy then. So that's the first step. Get out of the present for just a moment and think about how you're impacting even yourself down the road. And Tyler, thanks again. We are going to bring you guys some more great heavy topics. I think they're heavy. I think they're really important, great life things to learn. But we will see you next time in the Mind Muscle Connection.